Okay, thank you everyone for joining me on episode 6 of Get Stephed, a hairdresser in conversation. A reminder of why I've started this podcast, and that is to enjoy the simple art of talking and conversing with people that have inspired me. They all have very interesting stories. They're usually doing very interesting things. And so I'd like to share this platform to hopefully share their stories with you and offer some inspiration. So my guest today is Odette Barry. She is the founder and director of Odette & Co. She is a PR, I think she's a bit of a rocket. I don't think she would call herself that. But Odette and I have known each other for maybe around 5 years, and watching how she has created her business has inspired me. I'm definitely someone that loves creative business ideas and coming at things differently. And so today I so much wanted to hear her story about how and why she went out on her own and what her business has become over the last few years. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Odette. Odette, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on.
So as I mentioned in your intro, when we met, you were not working for yourself. You were definitely passionate, always passionate about PR, but you'd yet to take your own direction. And now, has it been about 4 or 5 years since that time? Mm-hmm. Now, Odette & Co. to me just looks like it's so in the pocket for, I guess, entrepreneurial small business to medium business owners that really want to take some I'd love for you to start off by just going back to the beginning. How did Odette & Co. first start?
Oh, well, it was very unintentional to begin with. I think, as you would know, living in paradise, there's not necessarily a whole lot of jobs for those of us that live here. And the jobs that are here are not necessarily as challenging, exciting, or rewarding as financially and mentally as we might like them to be. And before we moved up to Byron from Melbourne, my husband was quite reticent about moving just for the fact that he didn't think that I would have enough stimulation here professionally to satiate me, which he's obviously way more wise than I am, because I was like, what are you talking about? And I kind of did everything in my power to bring my job up here. I worked for the Australian Physiotherapy Association in marketing and comms, and I loved it. I really, really enjoyed my job. And moving up here, they were very kind to extend a project to me to work remotely on, but I had to forego the rest of my role in that time, and it was a very limited term project. I tried to get work up here locally and worked for a couple of organizations, and it really wasn't either stable or rewarding, really. And I did have a bit of a interesting run-in professionally with an employer that really sort of like shook my foundation of, I guess, what was in front of me. And, I've got a pretty natural entrepreneurial spirit. I've got a pretty high risk tolerance. And I've had business in the past before moving up here. But it was, very unintentional how it all came about. I just sort of put the word out there that I was doing a bit of freelance, and the freelance quickly snowballed into more work than I could manage myself. So I sort of put the word out to some of my friends in industry. And so without much intention, had a little communications agency, basically.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was like a hard run. Definitely, grew way more quickly than I had the skills or I don't know, confidence probably to carry. But I also, really got to cut my teeth on a little bit of everything in agency landscape after never working in agency before. I've worked in-house in corporate communications and marketing, and that's very different to the landscape of agency. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I kind of started reflecting on the agency model itself and kind of seeing some holes in the model and some opportunities in the model. And what I found is that lots of small businesses are doing super cool things, like really, really cool, inspiring stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, but they can't necessarily afford the services of marketing or public relations professional because they're doing things on a shoestring budget. And I was experiencing some pretty extreme fatigue and burnout in my business. And I took a month or two off, stepped away from my business very quietly without saying too much publicly, and hid all the matches in the house because I would have burned it down if I had access to them, if I'm honest. And yeah, I sort of like through that time, I went and volunteered and helped in my friends' businesses. Anyone that needed something physical done, I was there. So I was cleaning my friend's studio. I was glazing ceramics. I was making dog food. I was chopping veggies. I was doing anything that allowed me to not have to think whilst I worked because I just had such an enormous mental drain from being always on in my work.
How far into your Odette and Co journey were you? 2 years? 3 years?
2.5, 3 years. Yeah. And at that point, I had some time and space to reflect on what my superpower is and what I truly love in my work. And, I think in some respects, I probably fought like exclusively being a publicist for a long time, despite it being what I'd studied at uni and all the rest, because my sister's a publicist as well. And I think there's sort of like an element of not being competitive, but trying to not be competitive, if that makes sense. Like not wanting to be benchmarked against one another because she's so freaking smart and so clever and creative and strategic. And, I think I always really look up to what she's done in her career, and it's been pretty impressive what she has achieved. And I don't think I really wanted to be sat side by side that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of realized that I had some magic that I could share with businesses in teaching them how to do what I do.
Okay. Would you describe that as your superpower?
I think teaching them how to do their PR. Yeah. I think that more than anything, how to navigate through the PR landscape. Because, like I went to uni and studied all of this stuff, but I honestly learned most of it on the job without a mentor or without a manager who was tactical and knew how to do what I did. I had to just figure it out. And so in a lot of ways, that gave me the confidence to know that I could teach these very simple skills to other people to help them really transform their own business experiences.
And so how do you feel maybe from 1 year ago, right? So after you had that mental break, really took a good look at where you had been and what you wanted to change and focus on in your business. And then let's say you had another year of refining that. What did that look like after you put the matches, you weren't worried about the matches and you came back into your business? What direction did you go then specifically?
Well, I I sold my first Hack Your Own PR program without writing it.
How did you do that?
Well, I just had a sense that I knew that this was a thing. And I started sort of talking about it online and dropping it into a few Facebook groups. And I decided to put out a free version of the program. And so I wrote a skeleton outline of a free 7-day challenge to teach the basics of PR. And I put that out via these Facebook groups, and I got about 700 people signing up.
What?
So I kind of had this beautiful moment of validation that this was a thing. This was an opportunity for me, that there was interest in it. And then I very quickly needed to produce the content for that freebie that I hadn't created.
That's like say yes and work out the how later.
Totally. And like, it would be nice if I had written everything first, but, knowing what small business is like, I'm not a big fan of over-investing up front. I think you want to put something out there and get feedback and get a bit of an idea on whether the concept works, and then tweak, refine, and create something deeper and more beautiful. And I received an inquiry from someone who wanted to do a version of the program one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And that first client that I put through the program managed to secure over 10 pieces of top-tier media coverage across Australia from her first campaign. So
that sounds amazing. But for the people that don't know what top tier means, what's that?
So major metro media coverage, so national magazines,
wow,
TV news, radio news, podcasts.
Okay.
So it was pretty clear to me from those couple of bits of feedback that A, there was an interest in it, and B, it was effective. So I got pretty busy with refining the model. And how did that feel? Pretty fucking good, if I'm completely honest. Like it had been a long, hard slog in business, and whilst there'd been lots of interest in the stuff that we were doing, I was really I had no idea how to run a financial model of an agency, and that was probably my biggest flaw with it. We did some amazing work. We had some fabulous clients, but I was making some amazing jobs for people and not necessarily taking a massive income for myself.
Yes, fair enough.
And in tweaking the model and doing less, I was creating so much more for me and doing some really special work for the people that I was working with.
And so now it's been a little while on. If you reflect back maybe over the last year and a half, would that be the snapshot? How many groups of these courses have you run, and what kinds of interesting people do you notice are coming through?
Well, I've ran the program 9 times now.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks, matey. Yeah, it feels like something to be really proud of. I am really proud of it. And the sorts of people, God, it's really hard to say. It's people who are amazing, sparkly unicorns. They're just people from all walks of life who have created something special, and they want to get the word out there about it. So I've had everything from naturopaths, jewelers, marketers, social media managers, business coaches, psychologists.
Yeah.
Like permaculture educators, anyone who has a story to share. And largely that's business owners that, they know they need their social media. They know they need to have a nice website. They know they need to have a great brand, But one thing that so many business owners don't know or understand is publicity. Because I think, we see stuff in the news and we just are like, oh, okay, that's the news of the day. Or we see stuff in magazines and we're like, oh, cool, the magazine editors found these amazing things. But the reality is that, anywhere between 50 and 80% of most news headlines are pitched by either a publicist securing those stories or by a business owner pitching the story on their own behalf. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, super cool. Like, nice to be able to, create a little pathway for business owners
I
to
think
get their name out there.
Definitely, that's like bridging a very large gap of people's awareness in and around PR, and maybe for them to understand that it could be for them. It is for them to have some control.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and also because it's normally really, really expensive. Like, to work with a publicist, you're normally looking at paying about $150 an hour, and your retainer is going to be about between 5 and 10K per month.
Yeah, okay.
And for most small businesses, spending that kind of money outside of your core, what it costs to run the business is pretty unrealistic. So it's nice to be able to say, hey, you can do this 9-week program and you've got these skills for the lifetime of your business. And you don't have to, have that bleeding hole in your budget.
Well, that knowledge then becomes an asset. That's incredible.
Exactly.
So is there a special or particular stage that a business owner has to be at to come along to one of your Hack Your Own PR courses?
Yeah, I think there is. This has been like a bit of a journey for myself as well, as, getting more clear on where someone needs to be at. Sure. So it really depends on the individual, but essentially you need to be very strong and clear in your vision of what you're about and what your business is. So for some people, that will be from startup. You have got your concept, it's perfect, you've got it out there, and you're in those early stages. But for a lot of business owners, that'll be the 3 to 5 year mark, because you'll have been spending those first couple of years tweaking and refining your business model, tweaking and refining your product or service. And then by the sort of 3-year mark, you've got a fairly robust brand. You've got a great financial structure for your business, and you have built a solid social media presence, great website, and you're ready to take that next step to sort of sprinkle a little bit of rocket fuel on your business.
Yeah, and that's a great way to describe that.
Just really become known for what it is that you do better than anyone else.
So if someone came to you, because I notice on your website, which there's so many beautiful photos of you, Odie.
Oh, God.
I love them. But I noticed on there that if you're not quite ready to go, I think I'm ready to do this course. If you feel you're not quite ready, it's so good that you can have a conversation with you to then work out, well, you could be ready. Maybe you just need to tighten your story up before we start. Would that be totally fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. So I always run a little PR Kickstarter in the background. So if anyone's interested in getting their head around understanding if you're ready or not, I've got a 3-step Kickstarter that's a great little process to run through. So many business owners have imposter syndrome that gets in the way of them taking these great leaps into publicity, but also just understanding the various things you would want to have ready before you go out to market with publicity. But yeah, I also do little check-in. So if anyone's curious, you can book in via my website.
I like that because there's stepping stones there, because as we mentioned previous, there's quite a gap of understanding between what maybe a small business owner who's doing a fantastic thing knows compared to actual PR stuff and making it happen. So I love that there is those little stepping stones even toward getting where you want with your course. I think that's fantastic as well.
Thanks.
So when it comes to storytelling, Odie, what is someone's story? What do they have to know or talk about? Is it their why?
Yeah, look, there's lots of things that come into play with story. Some businesses, there will be a why story that's important. And for other businesses, it might be about their expertise or skills that they know and understand. And for others, it might be around the pain points or pleasure points that are what the end consumer or customer thinks about or worries about or stays awake at night thinking about.
Yeah.
That might be a person's story. So in PR, we always do a lot of brainstorming around the key topics that might be of value. And sometimes for a business, it's deeply embedded in the story of their business already. So, for example, one of my clients, Noonie Boob Oil, was established because Dale Larder, the founder, found out she had the BRCA2 gene, which is an indicator of a high likelihood of having breast cancer. So she created a boob massage oil to help people with early detection of any lumps or bumps changes in their boobs. So obviously the brand has a very strong why story threaded through it. So that is, PR gold for any journalist. It gives them something to talk about.
Okay.
But for other businesses that might be a business coach, for example, their stories that they share might be about how they guide their business owners or clients through the journey of growth and development. So it might be about mindset conversations or financial modeling or, so your stories really can span the whole breadth of your personal backstory. And I think you might have seen some of the stories I've shared recently with Kidspot or Mamma Mia in sharing a little bit about my personal journey with motherhood. And for me, a lot of that is showing my communication style, but also just demonstrating that I can do what I say I do.
Yeah, fair. And, do you feel that vulnerability is important, is essential?
Oh, this is a tough question because in theory, yes, I'm like all for heckers levels of vulnerability. And,
You've got the coolest language.
but, like I'm all in for people sharing. But there is a fine line between publicly whinging, but also overexposing your business. So if I was, storytelling about having a breakdown in my business and burnout, whilst also trying to seek funding from investors in my business, there's a high likelihood that the correlation between those two things could compromise the other. So I always say to people to do a bit of a risk analysis and, audit yourself and know, what am I trying to achieve right now? How much vulnerability is appropriate for where I'm trying to get to. So for me, most of my clients, are pretty cool. They're pretty, woke, they're emotionally evolved, they're intellectually awesome. And so having me talk about my vulnerabilities is, cool. It works for us. But if I was in a really corporate setting where I needed to be super squeaky clean and buttoned up, then some of my shares might not be super strategic. So I always recommend to people to do their own temperature check, because you kind of know your space better than anyone else.
That's awesome advice, actually, because it's so true, isn't it? We, as business owners, generally have quite a calibrated sense of who's listening and who isn't.
Yeah, totally.
And so how many people could be on this course at any one time?
I try and keep it super short. So my small, short and small. No, so it is a 9-week program, but I try and keep the groups really small so that you don't feel lost. I'm a pretty shitty learner, and I've really struggled in the school environment. Not overly academic, but I have persevered. And I've designed this program around my learning style. So I need personal accountability. I need completely hands-on guidance. And I need a little bit of shame. So my program's designed around all live calls. So there's no pre-recorded anything. It's all live calls every week for the 9 weeks, so that you have to show up.
Yeah.
And our groups are 10 people or less. So that way you know that you have to kind of show up for each other. And everyone knows if you don't show up. So you also have to bring the work to the calls. So if you haven't done the work, then it's pretty obvious. So it's a little bit mean. I do feel a little bit, evil, but it's designed so that people show up, that they do the work and they get the outcomes. And that's really important for me, because not only are people investing, financially, and whilst it's significantly less than the cost of working with a publicist on retainer, it's still $2,000, just shy of $2,000 to do the program.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also 90 minutes every week for 9 weeks. And as a small business owner, that's a really significant commitment away from other things. So for me, I've designed it so that you kind of can't fail. You have to show up, you have to do the work. And if you do the work, you get amazing results.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, because speaking of those results, we're just having a look at where some of your clients have appeared. I mean, that's pretty substantial. We've got ABC, we've got Elle, Mamma Mia, lots of news channels.
Yeah.
Incredible work.
Yeah.
Incredible work, lady.
It's really nice. It's like deeply satisfying that, pretty much every day, if not every other day, I get a text message from one of the graduates from the programs over the last couple of years telling me about the win that they've just secured for themselves. And, that's just the most thrilling and rewarding outcome, because I know that every one of those opportunities they secure for themselves is the runway to great success in their business and them achieving the goals that they've set out for themselves. And there's such a thrill in securing PR anyway. It's such a chase. You do all this research, you're running around trying to sleuth out the best opportunity, think out the best ideas, and then you pitch it, you cross your fingers and toes and you hope that it's going to land. And then when it lands, it's so exhilarating. It's so exciting. So to be able to share those experiences with the graduates is super, super special. And I get text messages all hours from grads as they're just so stoked, and it's really special to be on that journey with them.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I love the way that it's ongoing. I think if they've done the course a year ago and they're still getting results, that's them applying their own knowledge. Yeah. Incredible, right?
Yeah, it's really cool.
And so knowing the way, or a bit of the way your brain works, do you have something else brewing? Another idea or an elaboration on your course?
Oh, there's a couple of ideas floating around.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little accountability call with graduates that they can drop into a call once a fortnight, which is pretty nice to be able to stay in touch with people. But I'm looking at an audio-only version of the program at a bit of a lower price point for those people that the program's a little bit out of their reach. So giving them, I just find we don't have an awful lot of time for video programs to really sit down and 100% dedicate ourselves to that. So looking at just doing it, similar to a podcast.
Yeah.
And then also looking at releasing something for publicists. So a lot of my community are other PRs that tune into my podcast or who are part of my community. So looking at, I'm not sure what that is yet, but something in that domain as well.
I knew it. I knew there'd be something else going on there. All right, great. Well, the next course that's coming up is early October, which I imagine runs somewhere into December. Is that right?
Yeah, through till the first week of December.
Okay, great. And so I guess the best place for people to go in and check that out is your website, odetteandco.com.au. And you're all over social media. So Instagram, Odette and Co, Facebook, where else?
Yeah, and over on LinkedIn, just
LinkedIn.
look up my name and you can find me.
Fabulous. That's so good. Do you think you might be willing to come back on when maybe one of those new ideas start to roll down the hill? I'd love that.
I'd love that. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, Odie, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story and also just being able to hear how you help small and medium-sized businesses to really just get to that next level of taking some ownership and control of their own PR. To me is really, really clever. And as a business owner myself, I'm just so even more intrigued about what that might mean for me. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get involved in some way, which means I'll have some more feedback firsthand.
So good.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
But anyway, darling, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you've got a lot on, and we'll talk again in the near future.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, darling. Bye.